Hello and welcome to the Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies and series, including SG1, Atlantis, Universe, and more. I'm Father Cory Sticha. With me today are Lisa Jones and Victor Lambs. Howdy, Lisa.
Hey, Father Cory.
And howdy, Victor.
Howdy do, Father Cory.
And also with us, returning from a secret mission on the other side of the Stargate, Jack Baruzzini. How's it going, Jack?
It is going great. It is fantastic to be back.
Well, welcome back. We're very glad to have you back. So what's been going on?
So I thought of cracking a joke and starting this with hi, my name is Jack and I'm an alcoholic. I've been basically I ended up going to rehab to deal with some issues that I'd been going through. It'd been a long time coming, but it's been a fantastic experience. I am miles better than I've been in years, and I've had so much support, and so I really appreciate everyone's support and everyone's prayers. And also, if anyone out there is thinking they need help, there's no shame in asking for help. You know, people always have your back, and people will always be there for you, and there should be no shame in needing to reach out. So, yeah, I'm just glad to be back and glad to be getting back into it.
Well, we are very glad to have you back. I've been glad to take over for you, but you can have this seat back if you wish it.
We're an unruly bunch.
Yeah. No, it's been good to cover for you, and I know you've been trying to catch up on the back shows, and hopefully we'll get to hear your impression of those shows you missed soon. But again, we're glad to have you back, and glad you got the help you needed. I mean,
yes,
really.
Definitely. It's been very humbling to see how helpful people can be when you actually ask, and it's really a blessing. And I really appreciate you holding down the fort while I was gone.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. We had fun even without you, and we'll have more fun with you. So
Absolutely.
So before we begin our discussion of this episode today, I'd like to invite you to join our Discord server. We're having fun over there as well, and you can join us discussing Secrets of Stargate and all our shows. Get your invite at sqpn.com/discord. You can also go to sqpn.com/merch and get all your different merchandise with all your favorite shows, including Secrets of Stargate. You know, Victor's wants to get a beanie, and there's Lisa modeling our mug, and he wants to get a beanie So get all that at sqpn.com/merch. Today we're discussing Entity, the 20th episode from the 4th season of Stargate SG1. The SGC sends a MALP to a planet of artificial intelligence entities. The radio transmission of the MALP caused damage, so one of the entities transmits back through the gate and infects the SGC supercomputer. It develops its own Borg-like nest out of MALP components that it rapidly outgrows and tricks Sam into becoming its next hope. So it's a multi-system virus eventually. The entity reveals that it was sent to harm the SGC for the damage it caused to its homeworld. Eventually, Sam's consciousness is uploaded to the entity's nest, and the entity is destroyed through a double Zat blast. Dr. Fraiser is able to reflash Sam's mind and restore her consciousness to her body. Well, I'll start with you, Victor. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this. None of them are particularly great. Like a couple of things, like when we were doing theater, you know, in college, we would do like these black box productions, which were basically you would go into a black box with like no props or anything. And I think, and because it's you know, everything is stripped away, I think that's what kind of they were going for here, where, you know, there's no visits to another planet. It's just the main cast members. You have Walter, you have Siler, you know, Frasier, that's it. And, you know, if you're going to do an episode on the cheap, this is probably what you do. On the other hand, this has some of like the weirdest science and technobabble I think we see in any episode.
Yes.
To the point where like, okay, I watch Star Trek, I watch Stargate. I can turn my brain off. If you tell me that, you know, there's wormholes and, you know, all this stuff, I won't question the physics. But at a certain point, I mean, anyways, that's what I thought about it.
Yeah. It's definitely a bottle episode, but yeah. How about you, Jack?
As someone who works in IT, this was a fun episode to watch because of how ridiculous the premise is. Like you were saying, Victor, in Star Trek, I can kind of forgive things like this because they're in the future and their computers are from the future. But this is all early 2000s level computers, and you know how much storage those things had. One line I really liked was Fraser saying that the human brain has several terabytes. You can hold several terabytes in the human brain. And I did a quick Google search, and apparently the estimate, and of course this is all just estimation, and it's kind of comparing apples to oranges, but they estimate that the human brain could store 2.5 petabytes of data, which is an order of magnitude more than several terabytes.
Yeah.
So
I would bring that up too. The computer techno babble, because I was IT in the past as well, so I get it. And Lisa, how about you?
Well, I'm not an IT, so I'm married to an IT guy. So does that count?
Oh, yeah.
I always liked this episode. I know. I'm going to forgive all of the sci-fi stuff that you have to overlook. For a bottle episode, I thought it was a really good one because it focused on characters, relationships, and it gave 3 specific characters actors, a really good opportunity to just show strength and emotion and kind of low key, acting. I mean, you think about what Amanda Tapping had to convey just with her eyes and fingers shaking over a keyboard. And I figured, that she did a really good job with such limited interaction. And then Richard Dean Anderson, he spends the first half of the episode kind of acting silly and, does this make me look fat and, all of that. And then you flip to the second half of the episode and he just gives such a strong performance. And then Janet Fraser, we haven't really seen much of her over the years. And again, she had a really great opportunity to be the professional, but yet show us how close she's come to the members of the team and just what a kind of big decision and how, she sees each person as an individual. So I liked it for the characters, the development, and the acting. And I'll leave the techno babble up to y'all.
Oh, don't worry. We'll rant about the techno babble.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of with Victor and Jack. It was hard having built my own computer, having worked on, servers and things like that. Several terabytes of storage. That's such a huge amount, as I've got 4 terabytes of storage in my computer that's sitting here right next to me.
Just for
the whole human brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the whole human brain.
Just to hold my episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was 22 years ago, 21 years ago when this came out. So we can forgive them that because, my computer 22 years ago didn't have terabytes of storage either. So it had, half a terabyte, maybe. I can't remember even how much I had back then. So, and I also do agree with Lisa though on the acting and getting some characters to flesh out. And that is one thing bottle episodes are good at.
Yep.
Is they can focus on the characters more. And this was a traditional bottle episode. For those who don't know, I know we use it on our different shows. You hear it on Stargate, Star Trek, and Doctor Who, and you hear it here. Is a bottle episode is an episode that is done on sets that already exist, such as the SGC set, because it's a lot cheaper to film on an existing set that they don't have to take equipment anywhere else.
Yeah.
And this is a way that...
Yeah, and another characteristic episode of a bottle episode, and it actually fits in this case, is the characters can't leave. They have to be trapped in the bottle. And in this, they can't activate the gate. The base is under quarantine. They can't leave. And so that's the other characteristic element of a bottle episode is that the characters can't leave.
Yeah. But from a production standpoint, a bottle episode is great because it's a lot cheaper to produce. I mean, it's a lot cheaper. You don't have to go on site. You don't have to move equipment. You don't have to do all these things. It's just you're in this one, and sometimes limited number of sets, so you're not even moving cameras around the different sets. So they use them as ways to, we spent all our money on super mega flashy episode, like say, season enders. What do we got to do for this? How much money do we have for this one episode? So it's a cheap way to do things. So that's why most series will have a bottle episode somewhere along in the season, because it's a way that they can sneak an episode in, get another episode out for much less than their normal episodes. So anyways.
And why Stargate seems to do it 3 episodes before or 2 episodes before the season finale is just because they are saving their keeping their powder dry, as they say.
I also read that this was the first episode they filmed in HD, that it was an experimental kind of episode, and they didn't do HD again until season 8. And so that was one theory on why it was a bottle episode, like why they chose to do it this way was because they were shooting in HD for the first time.
Yeah, much easier to control in a studio that they know and everything, so they can know how the lighting works and all that. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
And for our listeners in the UK, when we say HD, we actually mean HD.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
Just we want to be inclusive here. Yeah.
Well, at least we're not talking about a ZPM.
Oh yeah,
or ZPM.
ZPM, yeah.
ZX Sinclair.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we start out, we hear that they found this gate address from the repository of ancients. This is the one that Jack got zapped with, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that they got from Jack when he got his head full of stuff that he had to get the Asgard to pull it out.
And the intro here is very quippy. Like there's a lot of back and forth banter to the point where it's not forced necessarily, but you could tell Peter DeLuise wrote this episode and he front-loaded a lot of the quippiness into this. It's like, Jack is very like quippy. It's like, wouldn't miss it, sir. This is my favorite part. La 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 la. And everybody's like very like bantery and stuff up until the point that like the Malp starts to fly. Jack's like, Malps can't fly. Apparently they can, Why didn't I get the memo? That sort of thing. Yeah. It's very quippy up front.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they wanted to, because of how heavy kind of the episode gets later on, they wanted to start it out with very light and, kind of, okay, well, no big deal.
Just another day at the SGC.
Yeah, it's just like, this is just another mission. They're going to check out another planet. Nothing bad's going to go wrong. I got nothing better to do. I'll go watch the Malp go through the gate,
Apparently for the high frequency radio frequencies that are creating a positive feedback loop into the mainframe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, this is where the technobabble starts getting bad, where they're talking about how all of a sudden they get this signal that overwhelms all the computers and everything, and you see things, sparking and, breaking, and all the monitors are smashed in, and, all because of this radio signal that they could have just cut off.
As you know from Star Trek, whenever you get a feedback loop in a system, all the monitors have to explode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, raise your hand if you've ever had a monitor explode.
Yeah.
Violently towards you.
Yeah. Well, there are no rocks, so this definitely wasn't Star Trek. True. That's kind of a running joke online that Star Trek panels are filled with rocks, and that's what come out when they explode.
Carter gets injured, and Walter gets injured, but yet Daniel and Jack still have to get examined.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was nice.
Because when it comes to medical matters, the U.S. Air Force has determined that Fraser is in charge.
Well,
and is that the case, or?
So this is the old, the medical officer can outrank the commander, and of course I've fortunately never been in a situation where that has to happen, but I guess so. I don't know I should have looked up the regulations on that about when can a medical officer overrule his or her commander. And I would assume that when somebody's hurt or when there's, a serious injury situation, then but an emergency or whatever. But I love that. Who put her in charge? And General Hammond's the U.S. Air Force, apparently.
Yeah. But even Jack didn't get that memo. So.
Yeah.
Well, so, but of course that's another thing you see on Star Trek and other, military shows and whatever else. Oh, the medic says I have to go away. The commander can't tell me to do differently. So.
And did you notice, like, when Sam goes to sick bay and is discharged and Walter's like lying there on his cot, like he's horribly burned, Sam doesn't even acknowledge him as she walks out of sick bay. She's just like, oh, okay, I'll get back to work here. And like, Walter, you could just say, hey, how you doing, Walter? Like, sorry about you getting burned or something. Nope. She's just like,
and does it look like he kind of like waves at her or something as she walks by, and she just chugs out the door?
And she doesn't remember in 2010 when he was kind of like, an officious jerk to them. So it's I don't know. That was like,
well, he really wasn't even an officious jerk. He was just, doing his job.
Yeah, that's true.
He wasn't even a jerk about it that much.
I was like, here's the part where Sam like acknowledges that Walter is also burnt. Oh, no, I guess not. So.
Yep. Yeah, like that. He's laying there with his uniform singed and, just, they're not even like have him take off his blue shirt, nothing, just laying
there in the corner.
one of the ways you know that Walter is never going to be a love interest for Sam. It's just
nope.
Yeah.
He has too much of a personality.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. I did like the little bit of CGI we got on the computer screen when it shows the Melp flying through till just before it hits that central core. They actually put a little bit of money into that anyways. It looked like a mid or early 2000s video game, but
it did. Like Omnicron or like one of those CD-ROM
Descent
games
or something like that.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's like, oh, we haven't seen this before. And then the Malp just like the point of view of the Malp camera just kind of lifts up and starts flying towards like the center of the thing. And you're like, oh, this is different. Yeah. That was nicely done, I think.
Well, they had the lights that popped up. They kind of spun around and, up, and it's like, is this like, is the Melp about to get zapped? It's like, nope, the Melp just started flying. Never mind.
Yeah.
Those almost looked like some sort of extension of the Stargate. That's what I thought it was at first. Like, is this an add-on to that? Or they obviously have it built at the gate for a reason, but they never talk about that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's supposedly a planet of the ancients. The ancients left at some point, which we know they like to abandon their outposts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And these radio frequency entities took over, but we never really get a resolution on, did the entities force the ancients out? Were the entities the result of some ancient experimentation into artificial intelligence? We never really get. I think in my head, like the entities may have resulted, because we know the ancients did play around with a lot of that stuff, but you know.
Yeah. It's interesting. Is this the first time they're actually called the ancients?
I was wondering that too. Like,
because other times they've been called other names, but I don't remember. The Gate Builders is the one you usually
Gate Builders.
you've heard before this, but all of a sudden it's the ancients, and of course that's what we know them for the rest of the series. But it's like, is it the first time that they're actually called that? And it's and they're just throw it out there. It's like, oh yeah, it's a word we've not used before. Or the Ascended, is another term, obviously.
Yeah,
use,
I think we have to have heard it before this, because I don't see it called out specifically, but I don't know. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting though. It's just like, oh yeah, the ancient device, the device of the ancients. Like, oh, okay, that's the first time they mention it, but it's something that struck me right there that happened, or, that they'd use that. But I do love though, you watch how all of a sudden the computer keeps. It gets infected, and of course it goes through every little thing. You see that one view from the Malp claw reaching for the emergency lights.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This reminded me a lot of like a real Ghostbusters, the cartoon version of the Ghostbusters episode called Killer Watt, where like an electricity ghost infects everything and possesses all the electrical devices, and then they all just kind of join together. That was going through my mind as well, and then. The entity possesses like the camera, which is this pan, tilt, zoom, security camera. Only like the puppetry on the camera seemed like really weird to me. Like the bracket was moving, not the camera itself or something. And then as it's going through, it's flipping through all the base records, but apparently there's only 3 personnel because it keeps flipping through the same. One of whom is Lee Van Cleef, who is the actor who is in a lot of like, crime and Western movies in the 60s and 70s. So I thought that was pretty funny, although we don't actually get to see Lee Van Cleef in this episode.
Yeah.
Which would have been nice.
I thought it was funny that when it's going through everyone's files and it shows Jack's file, and his name is John O'Neill.
Yeah.
I was watching it on Amazon, and they have those little information cards that pop up. And one of them says, this reveals that Jack's name is actually John. And I find that funny because I've encountered so many people who, when I tell them my actual name is John, I just go by Jack. They're like, I've never heard that before. I just assumed Jack was your real name. Like, growing up, I thought that it was pretty commonly known that Jack is a nickname for John, but apparently not.
Well, I mean, of course, we all know him as President John F. Kennedy, but he was known as Jack Kennedy,
right?
Yeah.
Informally. I mean, that is fairly common. At least it was at one point. Maybe it's not so much anymore. It's kind of faded from popularity, but that was very common. Jack Ryan of the Tom Clancy stories, he's John Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
so
wasn't his name in the movie Jonathan?
Oh, Jon versus like John.
Well, yeah, I think it was Jonathan Jack O'Neill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so instead of Jonathan, it was just John this time. So, but they gave their birthdays.
It's one L instead of two, so
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
the guy with one L doesn't have any sense of humor.
That's right. If people screenshot it and got their birthdays, but evidently there was a discrepancy with Daniel's because it said April 1st is what I read, but then in an episode we just had, he said it was July 8th. So, I don't know. But 1965.
Well, maybe it was a joke because it was April 1st.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Knowing people were going to do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because this was starting, this is about the point where the internet was starting to have, fact pages and things like that. So, they'd have, so what day was, was Daniel Jackson born,
Yep.
on some Stargate fan site. Probably is one out there somewhere, but.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I like how this entity, which is taking over basically every electrical device, even if it doesn't have a computer, like say emergency power light, is able to build basically the Borg collective behind, as you can see behind Victor.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, is this like the beginning of the replicators? That would have been cool if they'd tied this to the replicators somehow, because like we do even see like a little tiny like Malp that's about the size of a replicator, crab run across the floor at some point. And then we know later on that like the replicators build a SAM basically. And so there's a lot of overlap between the replicators in this episode, but I did like their nest in the Malp Bay and stuff. That was kind of cool. It was like a very like David Cronenberg, H.R. Geiger type, they could have added more stuff to it, but with the budget, I think they did a very good job.
They made sure to put in the little electrical flashing discs that you got to have in every single sci-fi set, though. The same ones they use in the Borg cube.
Oh yeah, yeah, the little plasma.
They look sciencey.
Yeah.
I also really liked the when they show like the command line interface on the monitor. It's like this kind of 3D back projected thing. Like that was cool.
Yeah.
I want that as a screensaver.
Yeah, the text is running, like they have the text 3D mapped like on the bottom and right and left, and so the text is scrolling like in like 6 dimensions or something. It's
like
really
it's
cool.
in a cube or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, another sign that this really is the Borg. This is the entity that runs the Borg. No.
Yep.
Oh, it could be Unimatrix Zero or something.
Yeah. Now, one thing. This is going to be one of the IT geek things. Yeah, did you notice that Sam said that the entity corrupted their file allocation tables?
Yes.
So, for those who don't know, file allocation tables are also known as the FAT file system, which was used like since the beginning of the IBM PC. Like nothing uses that anymore except for your little flash memories or something like that. Your little USB flash memories.
I was going to say you can only store files up to 4 gigabytes on a FAT file system. So that just adds to the how are you uploading an entire person.
Yeah.
Well, if they have to back up everything to the Pentagon every, who knows, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing proper backups.
That's
they're doing
true.
proper offsite backups, offline backups. So they've got that right. Yeah, we're gonna geek off about this.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of like early 2000s tech, I do kind of like appreciate, although I don't also appreciate that they went with an actual speech synthesizer for like the entity's voice when Sam was typing. Like for dramatic purposes, it would have been so much better if they'd just gotten someone's voice being like, I am now the entity, you care for this one. And that like, they digitally processed it somehow, but they actually went for like an early 2000 speech synthesizer, and it sounds like really goofy at first, but then it sounds very alien. Like the more you hear it, you're like, oh, this is not Sam talking and stuff. And this is really a synthetic entity. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I liked it versus having her have a different tone of voice, or Gould, whatever. And it really separated and helped you disconnect that it wasn't her, which I liked.
Yeah, something I noticed, and I've never used an old speech synthesizer, so I don't know how they work exactly, but she would hit like 5 keys and it would say an entire sentence. Like, do you have to type it out like completely to use those, or do they have like hotkeys?
So, I mean, knowing like what they do have hotkeys basically, Stephen Hawking's didn't have to type out everything that he did. Like he would start to type a word, and I think it would like kind of either autofill or it would have a certain amount of choices. And certain other people who have, like intellectual disabilities and stuff, and use not electronic, but pads to type, that may have words on it. They just point to certain words and kind of. So I think it was along those lines. But yeah, I was reminded of my days on the Commodore 64 and playing with Sam, which was a very early speech synthesizer on the Commodore 64, and it'd be like all that we could ever get it to say was like, "My feet hurt. I hurt my feet." Basically. And so I appreciate how far the technology has come that we now have, digital voice assistants and stuff. So
yeah. And I didn't know if they used like an actual speech synthesizer, like an actual unit that was available at the time, or if they used something like the Mac Speech,
Yeah.
If it was based off of that. Now, the keyboard she used looked like a typical of the time, the split keyboards, the Microsoft split keyboards. It looks like that's what that was. But yeah, I think a lot of them, you could set it up where you had common words that you could, a mode for common words where you could just hit, yes would be Y, you just have to hit Y and it says yes. N for no, something like that, so that you didn't have to type out yes, no, maybe, things like that. That would make sense. But it was, I agree. That was a good way to kind of change things up, that it wasn't just Sam talking in a robotic voice, something like that.
And also really added to the interaction of them talking to her. But they, it just added to the keys. Of course, the one kind of goof, which I'll overlook, of course, is when she says, "So I am."
Oh, right.
Carter, and Jack jumps in and says, "No, you're not," or whatever. And of course she'd already typed it, and when he started talking, it stopped, which is dramatic effect for the show.
Yeah.
But,
I did notice that.
Yeah. But like a teeny little thing we can overlook.
Yep.
Another thing that was kind of cool, and I thought this was a conscious choice, but it wasn't, is Amanda Tapping, like when she's first speaking as the entity, she doesn't blink. And if you assume that like the entity has taken over all motor control, may not know that humans need to blink to like, relubricate their eyes. She does blink, later. Like if you look at, is it Michael O'Reilly or Richard O'Reilly who does Gowron, he like doesn't blink except, in one episode.
I don't think that man blinks, period. I don't think he's able to.
Yeah, but she does it at some point. But it was a kind of interesting thing where she didn't blink for so long, and you're like, well, if the entity has all motor control, like they wouldn't,
might not realize it. Yeah. No, I thought that was well done. And you talked about it, Lisa, about her acting at that moment where she's literally having to distribute everything through a blank face and just through eye movement, and not even like good eye movement, like she's angry, staring at them, Yeah. It was very well done. I mean, it really was. And she'd move very suddenly, it was jerky movement. It wasn't smooth movement. And I thought that was, look at one person and talk about them, and look back at Jack and talk about them. And
then the buildup of the tension, she started out, her hands were pretty still. And then as the scene progressed, every time her, you could see it in her face and in her hands, the shaking and the kind of intensity building, which I thought was a nice choice, because you think, how in the world would you play that? Just sitting there trying to convey.
They put one camera kind of behind her where you could see the keyboard, you could see her hand, and her hand would be sitting there kind of like this above the keyboard, which was, again, nice, well acted, well done.
Yeah.
Of course, Peter DeLuise is, such a good, so good at setting stuff like that up. So understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get into the moral like quandary of this episode, which kind of like flips back and forth. And so at some point, like, given that this, SQPN's mission as a Catholic podcast, you kind of like say, is this a pro-life episode? Like if Carter had an entity like living inside of her, what is the, obligation to the sentient life form? And we kind of have, Sam before she's taken over, and Daniel as well, kind of saying this is, an intelligent life form. We should really try and communicate it, and hear it out. And so we do kind of get into that moral quandary. It's kind of like, it's a bit of a reach to say it's, there's a pro-life message in there, but we do kind of get this, flipping back and forth, as the entity, is what obligation does the SGC have to preserving, the entity versus Sam there?
I took it from the opposite in that when one of the first things the entity says is he recognized that they value the life of one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, what a powerful message that is, that this foreign energy being or whatever comes into your, earth, society, culture, whatever,
Yep.
in that closed environment, immediately recognizes that about humans,
Mm-hmm.
that we value the individual life of each other. So I
Right.
saw it from the opposite point of view of we are. It was an interesting message to say that I took her over because I knew you value not just hers but all life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when we do get the twist, where, we find out, and this is like the big twist, that Sam has actually been transferred into the computer, and yet the entity has sacrificed itself to save Sam because that will preserve its planet. The computer screen fills up with "I am here, I am here, I'm here," which, if you remember from Dr. Seuss, Horton Hears a Who, the Who's all announce their presence by saying, "We are here, we are here, we are here." And that's how, Horton is able to finally convince everybody that these are, entities, basically intelligent entities. So I don't know if that was conscious, probably not, but I thought it was nice, a connection there.
And she was screaming as loud as she could, just like all the little
exactly.
people in the
Bright yellow capital letters on the screen. That's screaming, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was odd that the whole reason they sent the entity back through the Stargate was that the Malp was giving off radio waves that was causing destruction to this planet. Mm-hmm. Where if you have an entire planet that's built of machines, you'd think they'd have like RF shielding and stuff like that, because you'd need that if you're on a planet just from solar rays. So I thought that was kind of a flimsy reason for it to be destroying things, but I guess that's just another IT quibble.
Yeah. It could be a world that's not orbiting a sun or something, and I don't know if there might not be machines; they might just exist as like radio waves or something. But you would want to I don't know, how would they build like a lead box or something, but it seems like something they'd want to do. Well, they can build, right? Yeah.
Well, then maybe they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They put a big box around the Stargate so no one can come in again. But yeah, it was kind of different that they said the radio transmissions of the Malp just was doing destruction. So it must have something to do with how the entities exist.
Yeah.
I said artificial intelligence, but they may not be. They may be something, just happen to get into a computer and control it. But
yeah, they said the radio frequencies were poisoned, which means they must have been playing some Linkin Park. Over their mouth? Yeah. Okay. Who stank? Anyone? Anyways. Anywho.
I do. Yeah, exactly. One little glitch I do want to point out early, is after the entity has taken over the SGCs, destroyed the computers, and everything's down. Hammond says that they're quarantined, they're locked out, locked off, they can't delegate or anything. But they did alert all off-world teams.
How? Yeah, they can't dial the gate. Yeah.
And it's not like they could go to the Russian gate, or call the Russians and have them do it because they're quarantined. So how did they do that?
Yeah,
it's true.
Good one.
Just one of those lines they had to throw in there, and didn't even.
Yeah.
So we had a flip of Jack and Daniel's. Usually, Jack's the one wants to blow everything up, and Daniel's like, no, we have to communicate with it. We have to be diplomatic, and in the end of the episode, usually Daniel's right, or that they don't blow it up, and it all works out. Think of Scorched Earth, with the...
Yep.
Okay. In this one, Jack was right. He should have just blown it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of go back and forth, but...
But the entity says it was sent there for survival. And the point of its survival was to destroy Earth.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. You weren't going to rationalize your way out of that one.
The sandbags with the claymores behind them, ready to destroy everything.
We see a lot of Siler in this episode, which is great. But a lot of what Siler's doing is, we even get a really good Siler line where it's like, we think that they've hacked into the emergency light bulb circuit, sir. It's like, oh, did you forget to change a light bulb, Sergeant? He's like, that's not my job, sir. Oh, funny joke. we get a really good Siler moment in this, but and we get lots of Dr. Frasier in this too, but she's like very eager to pull the plug on Sam. It's like, do we want to like notify Jacob?
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we alert the Tok'ra so Jacob can be there, as her father, that he might want to be there, but
It did have talk about living will and, having a living will saying, no extraordinary means and stuff like that. And, of course, that's a debate whether or not you should do that in the first place. But, yeah.
Or what counts as extraordinary means, though, I guess. I don't know. Like the ventilator, right? I don't know.
Or the entire machine, everything being kept alive by machines, and that's it.
Double-sided.
They said she was basically brain dead until Janet reflashed her brain.
Yeah.
I love that. Literally downloaded her brain from the computer to her,
You wouldn't download a brain.
Yeah. Well, apparently they did there.
But you would. Yeah. Yeah, lots going on in this episode. We get kind of like a weird like ship moment too, where Jack is talking to General Hammond, and General Hammond's like, "Oh, I know how much she means to you, Colonel." And Jack, like, you expect him to break down and be like, "Yeah, she means a lot to me." And Richard Dean Anderson, for whatever reason, just plays a completely straight face and says, like, "Yes, she's a very valued member of my team." And there's a little more to it than that, but it's like, I watched that like 3 times saying like, do you see on his face, like where his face breaks and you can just see the humanity and like save her at all costs. And it's like, no, he's just saying, yes, she's a very valued member of my team. And you're like, no, like the situation calls for a little more than that.
But that's how they always play it in this show.
I know, but he could have just like, his face could have been like ashen for a second. It was like,
he was looking down. He paused and then he slowly looked up. So there you go.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of took it as he was doing his best to keep his composure there.
But it's how he delivers every line. It's anyways.
That's just
now the question actually
Richard
is,
Dean Anderson.
I know.
So is Hammond? Does he know something, or is he just insinuating like he's you like everybody on your team? Yeah, this would be personal and problematic, no matter who it was, because Frasier was the only Frasier and Tok'ra and Ys were the only ones in the room in Divide and Conquer. With
the Zatark detector. Yeah. I mean, Hammond's not like poking his shoulder like, I know she's a very valued member of a team, huh?
Know what I mean?
Save her life?
Yeah.
And Jack's like, oh, come on. We'll save her. Fine.
Let's go have a beer later and talk about it. Yeah, no. Yeah. Not like that. But it was interesting that he mentions it, but there's never any other discussion. But yeah, and then at the scene with you're talking about Frasier wanting to pull the plug, that it's Jack and Frasier together. So they've kind of since the beginning established that Sam and Frasier, have that girl bond thing going on, and over the seasons, we'll see it a little bit more next season. Really have turned into a true friendship. So I thought it was nice that it was the two of them together talking about now what.
Yep. Exactly. So, anything else you guys want to mention about this one?
Daniel was very annoying.
And what else is new?
Yeah, there was so I know I did harp a lot on the very questionable technology in this episode, but there was one thing that I appreciated. When Sam when the entity transfers into Sam, she gets shocked through the keyboard, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But later on, Siler mentions that they've wired a capacitor from the MALP up to the keyboard to do that. So I did like that there was a little bit of thought put into how that would actually happen.
Yeah.
So.
And on the letter S, because I like the way that we are explorers. S. What are you doing? Oh, you're being fried.
And like mathematically, isn't like S one of the most used consonants or something?
Yep.
So
yeah, it is.
I guess that's.
I think that's why you watch Wheel of Fortune and they always give you RSTLNE.
Yeah,
because those are the most used consonants in vowel.
Because
everybody would always guess that. You'd get 5 of them, and everybody always guessed those.
Yeah.
It's all goosebumps.
It's all goosebumps all the way down.
Yeah. And any interesting languages for
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact.
titles?
Yeah, so most of these were derivatives of the entity. In Spanish we get el ente.
That sounds cool.
But yeah, el ente is the best. And then in German we get die falsche Wahl, which is the wrong choice. So I don't know what the right choice was, or
Blow
the
it up.
wrong.
Well, to
Oh,
blow
okay.
up the computer instead of.
There's a lot of choices in this episode. I guess
Yeah.
they made the right one every time because everything's back to normal at the end of the
There you
episode.
go.
So yeah, so
Yep.
those are the most interesting ones.
Well, very good. We like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Tim W., Janelyn M., Alex G., Angie T., and John H. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show on all the great podcast apps such as Apple, Google, Spotify, and all the other ones that are out there. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you can see our smiling faces, unless we didn't like the episode, then they're not so smiley. Please do share the shows with your friends. We want to increase our audience, both for Secrets of Stargate and all the shows here at StarQuest. So please do share our shows and let them know what great material that we have available for them. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate or to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. Our email for feedback is stargate@sqpn.com. And you can follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing Double Jeopardy, the next episode of SG1. Until then, Lisa Jones, thank you for joining me in the Secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Father Cory.
Victor Lambs, thank you as well.
Thanks, Father Cory.
And Jack Baruzzini, thank you and welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thanks.
And once again, I'm Father Cory Sticha. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?